The title of this is At Long Last, and I can't begin to tell you what a relief it is to finally, after having spent something like 8 years trying to develop our technical topics taxonomy, what a delight it is to finally be in a position to implement it. Some of the development, of course, was us. It just took us a while. But it's also true that you can have a taxonomy and you can't go anywhere with it until you've got technology partners who are ready to help you. And so we've had some challenges there. In any case, let's just review the bidding a little bit. ASCE Library is the scholarly or technical content platform for the American Society of Civil Engineers. Dan left the room, but I was going to say all of his stuff about AWWA sort of made me feel a little competitive, like I should be putting up all of our publishing history and so forth. I'll limit myself to saying that ASCE has been around since 1852 and has been publishing mostly publishing since that time. But the content that I've listed here is just the stuff on ASCE Library. We do have a certain amount of content that we would love to have some kind of retro project to scan and post, but that will require some more money and time and resources and so forth. So anyway, ASCE Library recently relaunched the website. By recently, I mean December 15th of last year. We were originally on AIP citation platform for, I don't know, a good dozen years, and then citation, AIP was having a hard time maintaining it, so they kicked off all of their, a lot of their customers, and we were one of them, and they gave us like a year to move. So we selected Adapon and got busy, and between 2011 and 2012, we managed to get launched on the Adapon Literatum platform, which was pretty much of a feat because AIP, we had been working with them very closely. They did our copy editing and our composition in addition to our hosting, but at that time, JATS was not fully in play, and so the XML was not standardized. So AIP had some, let's just say, customized fields and approaches and a whole bunch of hacks in their system. So when we needed to get into a standardized platform, that was a fairly major challenge. But anyway, we launched there in June of 2012, and it was a successful launch, and we were happy to be there and all that good stuff. But because of the time involved and because of some of the other constraints of the project, we pretty much had to sort of lift and shift. We were able to make some a few little designy tweaks, but there were a lot of things that we couldn't really do in that time frame. So we had let Adapon know early on that we really wanted to revamp what we had, and we signed the paperwork to do that in June of 2013, and it took until, really autumn of 2015 before we seriously got started on that project. Anyway, there were a lot of components to this. One of them was migrating to, Adapon calls it the Passport Content Management System. It's supposed to be a little bit fancier and support additional file formats and so on and so forth. And even though we were really at this point only doing PDF and XML, we thought that downstream we would probably like to be able to post videos and whatever other kinds of content, Word docs. We've got some stuff in Excel. We actually have a software program. We would like to be able to treat all of those kinds of things as their own objects, and so we should get into this Passport CMS. The trick there is that we were the first of their customers to migrate from the old platform, the Literatum platform, to the Passport platform. And they put new customers directly into Passport, but they had not done that migration. And it turned out that that was a lot trickier for them than they thought it was going to be, which really slowed us down. But that was a big piece of it. Another thing was they use a page builder to manage the user interface, and in this instance, and we had been wanting to move there because it gives us a lot more control and a lot more flexibility. Because they have been working in other venues, they finally got a grip on the concept of responsive design, and we were able to take advantage of that, and our mobile view is considerably better than it was before we had moved. They had come up with something that they were calling Search 2.0, improved search functionality. I'm still trying to decide whether it's really any better than what we had before, though there is some different filtering on it. In any case, that was part of the process. Implementing taxonomy was a big piece of this for us because, as I said, we've had this thing hanging around for a while, so that was important. They have this concept called automated topic modeling to recommend related content, and I'll get into that a little more later. It was a big project, probably worse for them than for us, but we did finally launch. So before I get into our taxonomy and what we did with it, I want to back up just a little bit. Adapon has long had a concept that is similar to taxonomy called Adapon categories, or just categories. And it's kind of a precursor to taxonomy. It really only works at the book title or journal title level, not at the article title or proceedings paper or chapter. So, you know, it is high level and it does work for that. We ended up with about 142 categories in several different areas. One is ASCE book series, ASCE sponsors, and topics. Topics is the one that everybody thinks of. Book series and sponsors is kind of inside baseball for ASCE people, but if you happen to be a member of the Structural Engineering Institute, you might actually want to know what books were published or proposed by the Structural Engineering Institute, so that option exists for our members. You might also want to know if something is a manual of practice rather than a technical report, because there are different requirements for those kinds of documents. This is something that means absolutely nothing outside of the people in the society, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on it other than to say that this was part of our structure when we put this together. We ended up with a total of 142 categories. I didn't bother to break down how many in each area. We do have some topics that we were able to create a sort of a second level hierarchy that's kind of in the red circle there. And we were using this to filter browse pages. And indeed, we're still using it to filter browse pages. Some of the categories are not for things like technical topics. They are for other purposes. For instance, ebooks, proceedings, and standards are tags that we use to identify different content types to associate with licenses in order to give people permission to access certain kinds of content. Somebody may want to access all of the standards, and we may want to create a license and a subscription for just accessing standards. So we needed a way to do that, and we use these tags for that. We have some kind of funny categories called no chaps and chaps whole to identify whether certain books are available for sale by chapter. Again, this is a sort of a back-end thing that you wouldn't need to know. The funny thing about it is that when metadata is exported and when the categories are exported to metadata depositories, all of the categories get exported, so sometimes they get a hold of things like no chaps and chaps whole and probably wonder what the heck that is all about. We have one other odd one called available in print, and it's used to drive e-commerce. So if a book has the available in print tag, this button that says buy print book will pop up, and if you click on that button, it will take you directly to the ASCE corporate website, to the bookstore there, where is the only place you can actually buy the print book. A few words about automated topic modeling, and it's only going to be a few words because this is very new to us. This is something that was so new that we had barely any testing. In fact, I would say virtually no testing of this before launch. So we weren't really sure if it was going to work very well, so we kind of buried it a little bit. basically, it's a secret sauce kind of things that Adapon has an algorithm, and they train, they use this algorithmic training behind the scenes. They index all of the corpus, all of the text, all the PDFs, all the XML, whatever, and they use that to come up with a recommender algorithm to recommend related content. And I just pulled up the title of one particular journal article, and then if you could read the recommended items, you would see that there are various kinds of concepts that have to do with biofuel and so forth. And you know, it looks pretty good to us most of the time. We have seen some things that are kind of anomalous to us. For instance, if you had certain book chapters, it would recommend, if you had like your title or the abstract page you were on was for chapter 2, the recommended titles would be chapters 3, 4, and 5, and you know, we don't find that particularly useful. So we're still having to work with them. We have seen some other things where things have been associated, say the word China was part of an affiliation, and that ended up being treated as though China was a topic instead of something like that. So I think there's some tuning that may need to be done on this, but as I said, it's new to us, and we're still trying to understand whether this is the best approach for doing a recommender algorithm. All right, a little bit about ASCE taxonomy development. I think this slide has been in every one of my presentations for like 4 years. Anyway, I don't need to repeat all of it other than that it was begun in 2009, and we've worked really, really hard over the years, and She Van Fleet is out of the room at the moment, but she did the lion's share of the work on our side, and then various people from ASCE Innovations over the years have helped on the rule building. Particularly Gina San Nicolas was heavily involved in it for a while. Anyway, we finally had developed it, and we're kind of waiting for an opportunity to deploy it. So the topics taxonomy is at, I don't know, 2,200 terms. I think the last time I saw it was 2171, but what, you know, who's counting, right? And we also have a geographic taxonomy. Now, the geographic taxonomy started as the GeoThes product that ASCE Innovations has put together. And I can't remember how many terms were in that, but what we found over the years was that fewer terms was better. I mean, they have a lot of things like ancient continents and stuff like that that just was not really relevant to a lot of our content. So we pared that back to what we thought was going to be the best geographic taxonomy for us at this time, and I think we're still looking to refine that. Actually, we just did a revision of that last week, which we haven't loaded into Adapon yet, but you know, anybody who's worked on taxonomies know that revision and review is a constant, and that's part of our world. So we have another little taxonomy, a book title taxonomy with only 3 preferred terms in it. And there's a special reason for that. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, the point is that now that we get the concept of tagging and taxonomy, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do with it. And so when we are looking for solutions, one of the things that we are always looking at is this something that is amenable to applying a taxonomy or a tagging protocol to make it work. All right, so a little bit about implementation in ASCE Library. Obviously, having the taxonomy is one important thing, and we have uploaded technical topics and geographic topics, both of which we maintain in Thesaurus Master. And I believe, Bob, were you the one who was mentioning the SCOS export yesterday? The SCOS Adapon export? Yeah, that was our fault.
No, Win, but whatever.
Oh, Win, yeah, right. Well, that was our fault. You know, SCOS is SCOS, but apparently there are lots of little things about it that makes my SCOS different from your SCOS, and so we needed one, and we had asked ASCE Innovations to provide that so that we could do it automatically without having to make their staff do it for us, and they kindly did that. The other thing was retro tagging of content for ASCE library. And this was not a matter of downloading all of the content. We have a SIS database, which started out as a civil engineering database in a completely different proprietary software. And that platform was going away, and we had to find something to replace it. So we selected SIS, and then we have spent the last couple of years really developing that. And I don't want to get into the details of that project. That's a whole different talk. But the point is that we have basic bibliographic metadata in the SIS database. And we use that to we run the content for ASCE library, which is specifically identified within the database, against our taxonomy and collect all the terms there. And then the terms and the taxonomies themselves are available for export. So tagging the retro content has been done about 5 times, 6 times, 8 times, and it's about to be done again because, as I said, we just changed the geographic thes, and once you change that and you have to re-tag it, you end up having to rerun everything. So anyway, we'll have the whole new tag set fairly soon. A little bit about forward flow for tagging new content. We have chosen a post-publication process for our tagging. Basically, everything is posted to ASCE library first after it goes through composition and quality control and all that kind of stuff. It's published in ASCE library. And then that metadata is exported to the SIS database. And upon ingestion in SIS, the tagging is done by Maestro. And the tags are put into our SIS database. And then we extract those tags, and we have an upload process with Adapon to add new tags. I think the plan is to do this on a weekly basis. I don't think we've quite gotten into a groove on that, but that's how we're planning to do that. Okay. This is a little bit in the weeds unless you happen to be an Adapon customer. This is one of those things that had to do with the SCOS Adapon upload. For some reason, there are term codes within the Thesaurus Master, but Adapon likes to have these T's involved, so the tag code is always T plus whatever the number is. And that was the sort of the thing that had to happen with the SCOS Adapon export, is to make sure you had those T codes. So when we export the terms from our SIS database, it comes out just as terms, as words, you know, bridge or snow loads or whatever. And that's fine, but Adapon needs that in the tag. They actually need the tag code, not the term itself. So what we had Access Innovations do was write a little utility for us so that once we extracted it, then it would run through this utility and we'd get the file in the form that we needed in order to upload to Adapon. It really doesn't take long. It sounds complicated, but once you understand what you're doing, it's actually pretty straightforward. So anyway, this is just a one page of a bunch of tags that we've uploaded to the Adapon backend. And the thing that I was kind of pulling out here, or making a note of, is that far column that has the red circle in it. A lot of the terms are tagged as tagging inherited from related tag. And then the terms that were actually tagged are called tagged directly by admin. I don't know why they call them that, but that's what they call them. Anyway, the point is that what we are uploading for each article is the tags themselves that are associated with that article. What Adapon is doing is adding in the whole path there. So we have a lot of tags that are associated with articles that are not, in fact, tags that we have applied. And this has caused some problems in our implementation. Within the ASCE library, we have our subject headings or tags displayed on article level or abstract pages. That top thing that you can't read that says ASCE subject headings are the specific tags that we have used for that particular article. And you can click on any one of those and that will populate search. We also have within the search, thank you, on ASCE Library, we do have a preferred terms as a type ahead. They're not really permuted, but they're all there. If it's a preferred term in one of our taxonomies, it appears there. So taxonomy is really used there as a filter in search results, and I guess this slide may be slightly out of order because you haven't seen what the filters are, but the taxonomy filters, you can have basically as many as you want, and at the moment we have 3 of them. So the filters are on the search results page, and they do work in concert with other filters. So I could click on one of my geographic topics and click on an author name, and I might get, very refined results for those kinds of content. What I was trying to show you with the 2 graphics here, and you can't see them very well, is the one that's under the text is the problem that is existing because of this inherited terms. The first term listed with the most hits is continents, regions, and countries. We did not tag any single piece of content with that term. It is a top-level term, and it is appearing because of this inherited path name issue. So this is supposed to be fixed for us, and the image on the right-hand side that starts with North America is just the actual applied terms, and it's supposed to be a fix that is implemented tomorrow, and it's supposed to be working, but since it hasn't actually gone into effect yet, I'm not sure. I was able to sort of pull that off of our beta site, but I can't seem to get the beta site to cooperate today, so I hope it's still working. Anyway, we created a new little taxonomy because we needed a filter for book titles that would work. Book titles the search basically is dealing with all content, and so it's mainly dealing with articles and papers and to some extent chapters. And the problem there is that if you have 10 chapters in a book, all 10 chapters will appear in your search results, and your book title will also appear, but it may or may not kick to the top. And if you only need to know what the book titles are that are associated with a particular whatever you're searching for, then you might, and you only want to know that it's proceedings that are associated with it, then you would have to have some way of filtering that. So we created a tiny little taxonomy that is just the book standards and proceedings, and that is one of the filters that we use, and it actually does work. This is just to mention that tags do have other uses. This is the image is all of the taxonomies, might not be the right term, all of the tag sets that are currently in our back end. One of them is for ASCE member, and one of them is for offer type. The offer types are used to drive licenses, again, like subscriptions. And the member tag is used to drive discounts. So if somebody is tagged as a member, then they will get a 25% discount on anything that they purchase through the system. So we needed to have a way of doing that. I'm not going to get into the whole member upload issue. That was another fraught project. But in any case, now that it's in place, every time you go into the system, it'll check to see if you're a member, and if you are, and if you choose to buy something, you will get your member discount. The offer types to drive licenses is, again, we just have a variety of products that we're selling, and we needed a way to distinguish what those are, and so we're using tags for that. This is not something that we are currently using in ASCE Library, but it is something that we've developed and are trying to figure out exactly how we're going to deploy it. In general, authors are associated with tags kind of in a backwards way. In other words, what is tagged is the article. And then the author kind of inherits the tag. So if an article is about snow loads, then the author is presumed to be an expert in snow loads. And that may or may not be true. A lot of since our tagging is like 2,200 terms and then plus geographic, you get a lot of things that are very specific. And it may be true that an article is about something and something is discussed in an article, but you would not necessarily say that the author is an expert in chromium, for instance. I mean, that may be a pollutant, and he may be talking about chromium within the context of pollution, but that doesn't make the author an expert in chromium. So what we needed to do was come up with a way of getting a little bit granular with the author specialties, but not so granular that it was kind of silly and often potentially misleading. What we kind of did was harvest terms from our peer review system and matched all the terms up and deduped them, and then we mapped our technical topics to our new flat list. And we ran a frequency report and diluted low usage terms and all the things that you do to kind of refine a taxonomy. Eventually we came up with a preferred term list of 184 fairly specialized terms. You have to understand we've got well over 140,000 pieces of content right now. And that's a lot of authors. And if you don't have some way of refining that a little bit, then you're going to have so many hits as to not be useful. Our original notion was we were working with Colwiz on some author profiles, and we thought we would use the author specialty taxonomy. We would provide this to Colwiz and that they would display it as part of a pop-up author profile that we were working on. And let's just say Colwiz has a slightly different concept for how they want to tag author expertise, and it doesn't really match our notion. So we've kind of backed off of that, and we're now looking at different ways of applying this particular taxonomy. But meanwhile, we know it's useful, and we know that we have some ideas around this. It's just we haven't actually applied it yet. So we also developed an author country taxonomy. We had, our marketing department was requesting lists of authors from various countries. I don't know if they wanted to market to them or they just wanted to understand who was coming to us or whatever. Probably it was in conjunction with some of the sales efforts they're doing to consortia around the world. So one of our problems is that the country information is actually combined within the affiliation data for each author. And also we have some country name variation and inconsistency. So somebody might put Korea, somebody might put South Korea, somebody might put whatever the initials are for ROK or whichever. Anyway, so you have to kind of sort all those things out and have various non-preferred terms and preferred terms and so forth. Anyway, so we were sorting some of those out, and we've had pretty good success with this. We have not completed the task of doing this for 100% of our authors, but we do have a pretty good base of author country information at this time. So, as I said, now that we have a few taxonomies, gee, why not have more taxonomies? One of the things we've talked about is institution name normalization, and this is a topic that has been taken up by various organizations and also, I'm sure, various internal groups. I'm sure that anybody with a membership database has probably run into this problem as well. Again, you know, is it MIT or Massachusetts Institute or that little engineering school outside of Boston or whatever. So that's one of the things that is of some interest. Things that engineers are interested in are specific landmarks, I mean things like the Panama Canal or the Hoover Dam or the Brooklyn Bridge, structures, World Trade Center, Pentagon, and different kinds of projects. There are some very famous civil engineering projects around the world, and we do have content that specifically describes, how they were built or whatever or in some cases how they fell down. Events really refers to certain kinds of natural disasters, things like earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes that are named storms that have had an impact and may find their way into the literature. And then famous civil engineers, again, it's just a thing that civil engineers are sometimes interested in. So we are at a point of, now that we've gotten a certain basic implementation in place, how do we refine that and what else can we do? Visualizations is high on the list. This is an interesting area because we're not quite sure how useful it is. It's certainly, for those of us who like pictures, interesting, it's pretty, it's fun. We think it's cool. Do our users think it's cool, interesting, useful? We have not actually been able to tell very much about that, and we haven't seen very many implementations that are using it out in the world either, so there haven't been a lot of people that we can ask, but it is something that we're continuing to pursue. Topic pages, some people who have given other talks have talked about that. We are also interested in topic pages, collections, that kind of thing. Leverage other taxonomies and databases. Structure-I is, of course, structures, and there's a great database on that. DBpedia is something we've talked with Bob about a little bit. Whether other ideas are generated from text mining. We really like that Ngram test feature in Data Harmony 4.0, and we're hoping to be able to use that to do a little bit of maybe primitive text mining. Recommender widgets, as I mentioned, we have this automated topic modeling now from Adapon. We're not sure if that's really the best, whether we can refine it in a way that's useful to us. So it's still something that we're considering. And a lot of people have made other suggestions and had other thoughts, and every time we hear something that we think we might want to steal, either she or I makes a note, and we'll take it back and discuss it with our team. So anyway, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to handle it. Shout out to She Van Fleet, who's back in the room, and also Wynn Hansen and Lamine, who have been a tremendous source of assistance for ASCE in the past year. So thanks very much.
I have a question for you. Your integration for sending the XML of your articles after publication to ASCE Innovation for tagging, is that all automated with APIs, or is it kind of?
Well, no, it's just the usual metadata export. You set it up to an FTP site just exactly like you would to Elsevier or Web of Science.
So you're doing a deposit, and then
so we're just we're depositing it, and then on the ASCE Innovation side, they are receiving it and they send it off and do various processing, and we have a way of checking some things before it kind of goes finally into the database. And,
okay, so with your workflow, you wouldn't really want a completely automated workflow anyway, because you're checking.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. And because there's certain things that are going to kick out anyway as errors because of XML anomalies or because of some oddity in the content itself. I mean, we have that. We have weird XML. I mean, who doesn't, if we're honest, right? Yeah. I should possibly take this opportunity to blame Sarah for some of the Adapon categories, because she was a big help in getting us started with that back in 2011.
You're still speaking to me, which
Huh?
I'm surprised. You're still speaking to me.
Yes, that's true, because look what happened. Anyway, anything else? Right.
The author specialty and country taxonomies, you're keeping those in separate thesauruses, right? Or are you?
Well, yes, we have a separate thesaurus project for each of those, right. And then we also have Within our ASCE implementation, we have a separate place to keep the different kinds of keywords separate. So different fields, you might say, yeah.